why not the Kenyan government? Bwana CS, in your documents that you've submitted, you've indicated that JKIA is worth 1.1 trillion shillings. And as it appears, even based on your submissions, we are willing to put an investment which is worth 1.1 trillion shillings to risk for 230 billion Kenya shillings. In your submission, Bwana CS, someone would conclude that the deal is done because you've indicated clearly that there is a team currently in India carrying out due diligence. In your submissions, you've also indicated very clearly that you're negotiating for a CEO to be a Kenyan. But you contradict yourself in your submissions when you're asked to provide a profile and the shareholders of Adani, and you say that we've only carried out a desktop due diligence. Who then would you be negotiating with if, for once, you have sent a team to India, but in your response you say you do not provide this committee with information on who the shareholders are? I would expect that they will go out there and borrow money to be able to come and build this infrastructure. Number two, internal accruals is really the bare minimum. Debt capital market structure is a cabal which is led by some people who are not named in this country because you could not even give us a shareholding. And a group of people who are out there, and if you just take a few minutes, Bwana CS, because due diligence is very important. The first thing that will come out is you'll be told Adani mental degradation in how their practices. So why on earth when it comes to the issue of investments in our property? Why did you not, if it is indeed, and I think I've opined this before, I know Kenya needs a second airport. Kilometers away, tell them you have the 260 billion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stop there. And I hope that you can answer before any other senator asks questions.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. I think we are going to go that way, whereby you exhaust your questions and we give you not so many minutes, about 3 or 4. You ask your questions, then the CS will answer those questions. Bwana CS.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Ledama, through the Chair, why Adani? Like we did indicate, with PPP Act, it basically seeks to help economy on mega projects where the government may not be able to develop. Like, because Senator Chute is sitting here, if we were to take the grid to the northern part of Kenya today, and because the government don't have money to build the network in the next 1, 2, 3 years, what we could do is to interest private capital through PPP Act, through PPP investment, to build the network on a return on equity, reasonable return on equity, and therefore be able to open that northern part of Kenya. Alternatively, we wait for 10, 15, 20 years to open that part of the country. So it's a way of procuring private investors, interesting private investors. The PPP Act seeks to really attract private capital instead of, so that we develop off government balance sheet. And then so the PPP Act there is so much of insider. You volunteer a lot of information because you are suiting. It is us who want an airport. It is us who want to open another part of Kenya. So you give a lot of information to interest private capital to come in and build it on their balance sheet, not on government balance sheet. So yes, you will see a lot of inside information being given because you are marketing the country for investors to help us to open the country. We do quite a lot in oil exploration because as a country we are not able to prospect for oil. We block the country, we go marketing, come, we'll give you this concession, we'll help you to do this so that we can leverage on early resource to support the economy from being just an agricultural economy to being a diverse economy. So yes, Senator Ledama, there's a lot of insider information when you are employing the PPP because you are attracting somebody to bring his capital, not look so much at the country risk. Today we are at B-. Investors are bound to be saying, why Kenya? There are so many challenges. So you marketing yourself, and so you provide information, you paint your country to what we truly are, not what people say we are on the internet and so on and so forth, because we want to attract that kind of capital. When you're doing an investment of 1.8 billion in a country, Honorable Chair, and it is private capital, there is the risk. Why do I have to take my 1.8 billion to Kenya? Is it a safe destination? Is this country safe for the next 30 years? Can I get back my investment? And so you even go as far as issuing a letter of support. We do a lot in energy. I think for every generation, because it's expensive, we issue letters of support and so on and so forth. So Chair, it's true, Senator Ledama, there's a lot of inside information. It is necessary to attract investors, to show them and paint the correct picture. It is us who need an airport. And otherwise, if we are able to develop on our balance sheet, and I'm now going to the first question of the asset of 1.1 trillion, you'll realize I spent a bit of time on that table on page 8 because I'd anticipated that, and I asked the same question. Why are we having an asset? If you talk about return on an asset of 1.1 trillion and you're basically having an investment, are we giving out the whole asset? And you'll note that we are only giving them a hived piece of land to build the airport, and even the 30 acres of land for the city side development is purely outside the concession agreement. Land on that asset of 1.1 trillion is valued at 937 billion. So you're just talking about a small investment around the airport, the old airport that needs to... I just flew in from China, and being the Minister for Road and Transport, I looked at the runway, I looked at the taxiway, and I said, it cannot be that this is our airport. We seriously needed to have done that work 10, 15 years ago. If the balance sheet, the government fiscal space was adequately able to support that kind of investment, Chair, we should really... So, Chair, the straight answer is the only asset, JKI is only getting a small acreage to develop the airport and not the big asset that is valued at 937 billion. How many acres are they? 11,000. 11,000 acres out of?
The total land in JKI.
No, I'm talking about what is going to Adani to develop the new airport.
It will be based on the market of development.
But it's a small, they are not, they are just taking, we can give a detail. So, Chair,
point of order, Chair. If you would allow, I would like the CS to actually say what he's saying. He's not saying what he's saying. How much land are we giving Adani either in concession or outside concession?
Thank you, Chair. Outside concession for the city side, 30 acres has been agreed on lease commercial terms. For the airport concessioning, because I'm here with the CEO, I will answer that question. Henry Ogoye, give me the straight answer. We need to give the acreage. Just do a bit of some homework. Or do you have the answer?
Yes, thank you, Honorable CS. The thing is that as at now, we cannot tell how much it will be, because they have to come up with the design for the second runway, the area where the new terminal building will occupy, then and even the necessary the accessories. Out of that, we'll now map the area which Adani will be responsible for out of the land which JKIA is occupying, but not everything. Back to you.
Thank you, Henry. Let me pick it, Chair, from there. You'll note that I did indicate that one of the critical documents to be able to reach commercial or final investment decision is the master plan. If we really put the acreage before the master plan, we'll be basically saying squeeze in, or we are giving you too much land. So we need to see the master plan to be able to say, is it 200 acres, is it 400 acres, is it 500 acres? But certainly the big asset value for JKI is the land, and I don't think they are taking 5% of the land once we see the master plan. So allow us, Chair, because we are at that stage to be able to answer and see what is the value of the asset in land that we are giving out, and be able to more articulately answer that question on, is this a reasonable return on assets when we give them too much value for an investment of 2 billion. Chair, the final part of this question is to the head of terms. Chair, we have retained a transaction advisor called Sequoia Button and Box. Sequoia Button and Box, Chair, is a company, a very reputable transaction advisor. They have done many airports. I'd like us to Google, that's why I repeated the name twice. They are working with a local legal firm called Ashitiva Lawyers to support us to run the transaction. Those are retained by Kenya Airports Authority, and working with the National Treasury, the Directorate of PPP. It's important, Chair, to appreciate the fact that the head of terms was not done by Adani. When you Google who are these Sequoia Button and Box, and when I did that homework, I found that they have done most of the world-leading airports, and I think reputational risk is something of paramount to a great transaction advisor in terms of ensuring that they don't just do a small transaction advice in Kenya and run down their reputation because of. So yes, I thought it's just important to mention that we retain Sequoia Button Box, working with, it's a global service law firm with very sound counsel in airports, and then therefore we have good advisory service. And I want to basically and categorically indicate that the head of terms was a very well negotiated document between the lawyers of Adani and our transaction advisor, and of course the PPP Secretariat at the National Treasury. I don't know whether I have anything else I need to talk to.
Yeah, Senator Ledama had asked, why not build a new airport?
Important, and the shareholding, Chair, cannot be left and it must be disclosed. Together first, Chair, with the issue of debt equity. Senator Ledama, through the Chair, the debt equity, when you are doing huge infrastructure investment, as a student of financial accounts or investment, the debt is normally cheap, and what happens is you need to be able to put in your equity to draw debt. Debt can be a mixture of crowd-sourced funds from various banks and so on and so forth. For you to get 70% debt, which will be serviced over a period of 20-25 years, the due diligence will really be so thorough, to the extent that you cannot take risk of lending $1.3 billion if they were hanky-panky, because you could be walking in to lose your money. This is why, as a government, will issue letter of support. A due diligence will be done by the banks. When we talk about reaching financial close in 6 months, 9 months, it may not even happen in 1 year. So we should be asking us, why don't you give us an airport in 1 year? Why are you dealing with documents for the next 9 months? The banks will do, the lenders will do a thorough due diligence to give us their money. And it's important to note that the share or ratio of debt equity is important, because debt normally is cheap. You can borrow US dollar denominated loan at today 8, 9, 10%. But when you put in equity, 30%, equity is expensive. If you do investment in the market today, you can get up to 16, 17, 18%. So if we were to ask somebody to bring their money at 18%, there will be a rush to invest, because we are guaranteeing a return on investment for 30 years. And then so the term sheet would ordinarily, for big infrastructure project, define not more than 30%. In fact, in energy, we do 25%. We do 25% debt, 25% equity, 75% debt, because debt is cheap. I thought it is important to. It's a principle of investment in economics to be able to do that. But more importantly, let's talk to the. So it's very important. A due diligence will be done, and we'll disclose that. But more importantly, the lenders will do a thorough due diligence to be able to commit their debt, which will sit with us for a long time, and which if they don't do their due diligence and they lose the money, it's a case of why Kenya. They've got many other good blue chip investment where they can put that money. As regarding why not build an airport in Konsa, in a feasibility study, and I don't have a straight answer for this, but think about a new airport being built outside JKIA, and all service migrating to the new airport. What do we then do with our assets? What do we do with our staff? It's important to basically know that, think about if when Safaricom came and they did not move with the telecom, some of the Telecom Kenya staff, you would be left with a stranded asset that you cannot develop. So you'd have to do some serious consideration.
Just on a point of order, I mean, when I see us, allow me in 30 seconds to interject.
Yes, that's it.
Because I'm not going to interject because my colleagues need to ask questions. Are you sure you believe what you're saying? In the sense that if we were to build a new airport, that JKIA will become problematic, yet you are the CS of transport, you can easily give consent to a few airlines to fly into this one and the other ones to fly into the other one. Number two, just nearby in Rwanda, in Ethiopia, they are building a new airport 30 kilometers from Kigali. And in Kigali there's an airport. Honestly, Bonasias, my friend, do you really believe what you're saying?
Chair.
Yes.
Chair, you think about, flip it, and in the documents we are negotiating, they are telling us also that once you concession to us, JKI, don't build a new airport within a radius of 100 kilometers, because the point is really, you are seeking to secure this huge investment, and you don't want, if we don't get return on this investment, we will have to raise the service charge to be able to cover because the facility must be fully serviced. And to the extent that we don't get enough revenue, we'll be forced to raise the service charge to be able to pay the loan. Because the loan, at the end of the day, it must be bankable. The project must be economically bankable to be able to do that. But Chair, I think it's important, and that's why I use Safaricom. If we allowed another parallel company to build a telecom company at that time and not inherit the old assets that we had and clean them up and support the staff, we can actually be left with our staff complement, because for this it's a win-win. They take over the staff, they upgrade the airport, they build a new runway, and to the extent that, Chair, I think it's important to say this, what we are also negotiating, to the extent that the threshold for bankability is exceeded because we are building a 23,000 capacity airport. Suppose, like I said yesterday to the media, the economy grow and we need the numbers for the airport exceed 23,000. We are negotiating to be allowed to concession a second airport, and that way make economic sense and make sure the bankability. Because Senator Ledama, through the chair, it's important to know that if they don't get the revenue threshold to make the project bankable, the service charge will have to be increased. Under the current negotiated...
we hear you, Banasias, because you repeated what you said.
Let me say one final item.
Yes.
All airport charges charged by the airport service shall be approved by the contracting authority. So they will not come and impose their charges. There is a